Hi there. Back in November, HBO head Casey Bloys actually confirmed that they're in very early discussions on a Game of Thrones franchise theatrical movie. This is very early, there wasn't much motion on it yet, but this briefly came up yesterday when the head of the drama division, Francesca Orsi, was at an event and briefly touched upon that there are future spin-offs in various stages of development, and what are they? So I want to go over that in this video, mostly the question of, if they are discussing one movie, what movie could it be? And give you the conclusion up front why it's probably Robert's Rebellion. Like I said, yesterday Francesca Orsi was talking about filming on House of the Dragon and the second spin-off, Dunk and Egg, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, coming this fall. And at the very end said, there are other spin-offs we're doing, other Targaryen ones we've considered, but this one is pretty small scale and intimate. And one or two people thought, I hate it when people use demonstratives. This, that, and the other thing. If she was referring back to Dunk and Egg is a small scale story, but briefly touching on, we do have other spin-offs we're considering. And we know what two of those are already, the two prominent ones, live-action ones. There was also a couple of animated projects. But in terms of live-action, we know Mattson Tomlin, who is a screenwriter for the Robert Pattinson Batman movies, he is attached to Targaryen Conquest, which by extension we think would be like a 7-season thing going through the Sons of the Dragon era into Jaehaerys by season 7, but Mattson Tomlin doing Targaryen Conquest, and Ebony Booth is now the third screenwriter attached to a Nymeria project. They've rebooted Nymeria twice. This will be the third attempt at making a Nymeria show. We haven't heard much about those yet. They're not greenlit, but they've advanced from the pitch phase to the we ordered a pilot script phase. Scripts are being written. We're not sure how that'll shake out. But there are writers attached. Those are real in-development projects that aren't just ideas we're batting around the office. So that's what Orsi was referring to. Now, I'm sorry, I got really sick in mid-November. I wanted to report on this at the time because there was motion on this, both from Casey Bloys on November 12th, and also something Martin himself, George R. R. Martin, said 2 days before that in a blog post on November 10th. I'll get to that at the end. But the rest of this is just picking apart what Bloys had said. Because there were rumblings for a few weeks before that we hear HBO is considering theatrical movies. And at the time, I made a video saying, well, we'd heard rumors about that, actually posted in Variety a year before, which might still be true, that they might be considering doing the Targaryen Conquest Season 1 on the actual War of Conquest. That Season 2 would be the Dornish War, but Season 1, the Conquest itself, might work as a 3-hour theatrical movie with like a limited release, that the budget would be high enough that rather than stretching it out to 10 hours, and it's so action-oriented, I could see that working as a 3-hour movie. That it's either like 3 to 6 episodes, depending on how you cut them up, from 30 minutes to 40 minutes at high budget, that like when Game of Thrones had big battles, like the Battle of Castle Black got a limited theatrical screening. Why not give it a limited theatrical run just to show, here's Season 1 in the form of a 3-hour movie? They might still do that. We heard they were toying around with that. No word on it yet. However, this is the update to my last video I dismissed. Yeah, we heard rumblings, but they're probably just talking about Targaryen Conquest. It is now clear these rumblings were not about the potential backdoor pilot Conquest movie. The first big news is Casey Bloys, November 12th, outright confirmed, yes, these rumors you've heard are true. We are having early discussions about maybe doing a theatrical movie. The key point I didn't pick up on at the time, then I had to drop what I was doing because I got sick and couldn't make videos, is that Bloys stressed this is very early discussions. No writer is attached to the movie yet. And what I should have picked up on at the time is that guarantees this theatrical movie is not Targaryen Conquest, nor even maybe they were retooling Nymeria to be a movie trilogy or something, because it's relatively little narrative and a lot of action at high budget kind of fits a movie better. But no, the fact that there isn't a writer attached. Targaryen Conquest has Mattson Tomlin. If they were talking about a TV movie turned into limited theatrical run by Tomlin, they wouldn't be talking about it like this. So this is clearly a separate theatrical movie from Targaryen Conquest or Nymeria. So what the heck could it be when I just was automatically assuming it was Targaryen Conquest? What else is there? The other issue we have to reassess, I'm talking about on a scale of 2 years. 2 years ago when they were throwing money around, we thought they were going to be expanding this cinematic universe, the World of Westeros cinematic universe, the WWCU, if you will. But now they're contracting, they have money problems, all the stuff we heard about back in August with Warner Discovery having a lot of money issues. They actually improved by Christmas, that their latest quarterly results are better. Remember there was a time when we seriously said, if they argued more, season 1 could have gotten 11 episodes and covered Harwin and Laena a bit more. Would have made season 1 from a 9.5 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10, and it's still really good. Now they're cutting back to 8-episode seasons, not just for us, but across the board. So in that new climate of cutbacks, I'm not expecting 2 to actually 3. The most you can do is 3 live-action shows in a franchise per year. By way of comparison to, I have whole videos about this where I go, by way of comparison to other cinematic universes, like Disney with Star Wars and Marvel, they have never put out more than 3 Marvel shows or 3 Star Wars shows in a given calendar year. It goes spring, summer, and fall for them. That is the saturation point. And all of my predictive models from when we were starting this were assuming there was infinite money and they were going to throw it at it. And they might be investing more now, but now we need to be more pragmatic with, they're going to be a heck of a lot more selective about what they actually greenlight. TV shows are easier. You could start a whole, TV show on Nymeria, which is a whole new setting, but it's a TV show. It has the time to do that. Movies are geared much more towards the general public. They don't have the luxury of people will pick up on it over time through streaming services. They're judging the box office. So this drastically narrows down the list of potential movies, not just from story-wise. Movies tend to be more action-oriented, like if you stretch out the actual War of Conquest from the landing to the Field of Fire, that's about 3 hours worth of content. I could see that done as a movie. You can't really do that with the 40-year marriage of Jaehaerys and Alysanne and their problems with their children. I think that should be like season 6 and 7 of the Conquest show. If they ever get that far, is just keep going. It's more of a family drama than it's an action thing. Movies need to be something action-oriented, and now more than ever, the second factor is it has to be something that a general audience is familiar with, that won't take a lot of time to explain, that is tied to the Game of Thrones TV show. It can't be something that is in the books that we, the book fans, know about. It has to be something that a TV show audience is familiar with. Reason I give all this context is, as a result of that, there is no way that if they're only doing 1, maybe 2 movies they're considering, there is no way they are considering Blackfire Rebellion. Pausing for effect to let that sink in, that the Blackfire Rebellion was never mentioned by name in on-screen dialogue in a live-action Game of Thrones episode. And it couldn't be in House of the Dragon because it hasn't happened yet. It's a century after that. So, 70 years after that at this point. But it hasn't been set up. While I think it would make a good movie trilogy, it doesn't have name recognition. And on top of that, it's just human armies versus dragons fighting each other with characters people aren't really familiar with. It has too much going against it. On top of that, I honestly think Blackfire Rebellion would work better as a TV show. That I've said, I think that they should have a 5 to 7 season show that starts with the conquest of Dorne and the reign of Viserys II as the Hand of the King, when he was functionally the king, through Baelor the Blessed, then Aegon the Unworthy, and it builds up to the Blackfire Rebellion as this climax between Aegon IV's sons. So I think if you did it in one TV season or one movie, it would be wasted. So I'd rather they do it as a TV show than just burn through it in a single movie. Similarly, some have speculated maybe they're considering a Valyria movie. But we have confirmed that they were considering and put a lot of thought into Valyria as a 5 to 7 season TV show. Now, I made this whole leak about how it's called Empire of Ash, and here's the factions in it, I'll link that. Let me stress, independently of my leak, writer Max Borenstein later admitted, yes, my idea was Valyria, and of the 3 final round candidates, which were Long Night with that Blood Moon thing, which was insane, Dance of the Dragons with House of the Dragon, third finalist was Doom of Valyria, and they have a lot of fertile ground in it, but it's mostly new locations and characters that a TV audience wouldn't be familiar with. Granted, it has a lot of dragon action, but it was conceived of as a TV show, long-form TV show. I think it would be wasted potential, and I think they would too, because it would be blowing what could have been a long-running TV idea in like a movie or two. So because of that, I don't think they do Blackfire Rebellion or Valyria, that they're not connected enough to characters that people are familiar with, and that they really were better suited to a long-form format rather than waste the idea. I wouldn't put it beyond them. Well, I think in general principle, if we woke up tomorrow and they said, actually, we want to do a movie on the original Long Night, I would not be opposed to that, in general principle. I'd like that more than a TV show. Like, every rumor we heard about Jane Goldman's version of this was insane. And those leaks we got later of this looks Greco-Roman, the Andals are in it for some reason, it's racist to black people. Later spy photo, there were production leaks of actual photos from it earlier last year, and it just was really weird, and it brought up the discussion again. I will link to that as well. Now, her version of Long Night, Blood Moon, is bad, and not George R.R. Martin. But the version of a Long Night thing that we, the fans, would write up as fanfic, of here's the last hero, here's Azor Ahai, this is the first White Walker thing, I don't know if there's still demand for White Walkers at this point. But I think compared, if you have a binary choice between a long-form flagship Long Night TV show is a terrible idea because there's no source material, or, yeah, I could see that working as a one-shot movie, provided they have good writers, but then it runs into the same problems Blood Moon had, that none of the locations exist, like King's Landing doesn't exist, the Wall isn't there yet, Winterfell and Casterly Rock are technically there, but we never saw Casterly Rock that much, and Winterfell is like a ring fort, it's not really the same Winterfell, so many things are different, that again, a general movie needs to be connected to a general audience, things they're familiar with, carries a lot of weight. Something actiony, the action-packed, that a casual viewer would know, oh, this is how it connects to the main one. And that's relatively focused. So while I wouldn't object to, if an entirely new writer, like if Mattson Tomlin or someone, a respected known writer, said, I'm going to move on to doing a one-shot movie about the original Long Night, I'd give it a shot. But that really doesn't seem to be what they're doing, that we can rule that out. Valyria they meant as a TV show, Blackfire Rebellion they meant as a TV show needs more setup. It really seems by process of elimination that the top candidate is Robert's Rebellion. Because then again, think about it, if the Conquest technically goes all the way through Jaehaerys I's reign, that'd be like season 7 and 8 of a sequel show. If we get that far and it's good, that goes right into early House of the Dragon, and House of the Dragon's going to have a sequel show, we hope, about if it's still going well or new writers will come in. That Condal has said, I'm here through the end of the war, then I'm leaving. The Regency era that comes after, the Aftermath era, the later chapters of Fire and Blood, they've toyed around with they vaguely said we might make a direct sequel show, just going chronologically about these are the last chapters in Fire and Blood, bring in an entirely new writing team. I would check it out, because I'm a fan of the book, and there is material to adapt. And that would go right into, again, my whole idea of a Blackfire Rebellion show would start with the end of the reign of Aegon III. So I can see them that would flow into Blackfire Rebellion, which would then run into the problems Blackfire Rebellion had, of it works better as a TV show than a movie. And after Blackfire Rebellion, the Dunk and Egg era covers everything from the immediate aftermath of the Blackfire Rebellion to, I think, the final season when they're old men, the tragedy of Summerhall. That's when Tywin defeats the Rains and becomes Hand of the King, which is basically Robert's Rebellion at that point. So in terms of historical eras, we've ruled out anything that could be a movie in a narrative form. They're not going to do Long Night or Valyria and other continents, and in terms of Westeros, also ancient history, they're not going to cover. Other stuff they want to do as a TV show. Process of elimination, yeah, if they're narrowing down from we're going to make a cinematic universe of, pause for emphasis here, my conclusion, if they're going to make a cinematic universe but they're scaling back now, they're not going to make a giant cinematic universe of 3 TV shows per year plus a movie every other year. That we're not going to get 3 to 4 movies within the next decade. That's not happening. We might get 1 or 2 in the next 5 to 6 years if we're lucky. Maybe that they're focusing on one outside chance of 2 candidates. And when I say 1 or 2, I don't mean 2 parallel ones. I mean, I think they're going to make 1 movie, maybe a sequel to it. The only pragmatic choice for a general audience would be Robert's Rebellion. The issue this brings up is that we usually dismiss it out of hand because Martin always said, I will never allow a live-action adaptation of Robert's Rebellion. Because, well, why? Because he said, well, because the novels cover that through flashbacks. The ideal hypothetical A Song of Ice and Fire adaptation would have covered everything in flashback scenes. But we didn't get that, is kind of the point. And the other thing is Martin also, there was a time when Martin vehemently said in the same sentence, I will never allow either a Robert's Rebellion show or a Dunk and Egg show. And now we're getting a Dunk and Egg show, so that was my one big caution against dismissing out of hand, we'll never get Robert's Rebellion. Well, now we have Dunk and Egg, so it seems very probable. And on top of that, Martin himself is making that stage play about the tourney at Harrenhal, which is the opening event of what led to Robert's Rebellion the next year. So given that he's a lot more open to that he has as a stage play, maybe HBO came to him and went, can we, work in the narrative of your stage play as the start of a movie adaptation, transferring it to film, and then it'll turn into the actual war, because it's too long to fit into just one stage play. Apparently, I really think discussions like that were happening. So there is no doubt, I'm 99% that if they are discussing a movie, I'm just making this video for people going, oh, well, it must be Blackfire Rebellion. I like that too. Must be Valyria. I like that too. But due to the 2 factors of general audience familiarity, things they want to do as TV shows, and above all, the recent cutbacks, that if you're going to do 1 movie, you're not going to do Blackfire Rebellion. If there's literally 1 movie because they're making cutbacks, it's going to be Robert's Rebellion. This is a good thing. I'm not complaining. I'd like to have a Robert's Rebellion movie. The rest of this is a bit more open-ended because I've got longer videos musing on this back when we thought we'd have a bigger cinematic universe. Robert's Rebellion isn't really that much material because it only lasts 1 year, that you couldn't really do that as a long-form 10-episode multi-year TV show. There just isn't enough material written. And even in universe, there just isn't enough material. But sitting down and thinking about it, I could see them doing that as a movie trilogy, or more 2 movies. First movie, and think 2 to 3 hours, would be starting with the Great Tourney at Harrenhal, and then through the outbreak of the war, and then the second one would be the actual war, ending with the fall of King's Landing and birth of Jon Snow and flight of Daenerys' mother. I used to have a video up which I spent a lot of time making where I intercut all of the Histories and Lore animated videos in chronological order, the motion comics. It was 1 hour long, and it covered everything from Turney and Harrenhal to Daenerys fleeing into Essos. I had to take that down for copyright reasons eventually, I'm sorry, but tell me in the comments if you saw it. There was just a mock-up to show, look how much time it would physically take to say all of this would be about an hour, but an action scene would last 10 minutes and they're just glossing over it. I think one movie, more like I prefer two, but I don't see how you could do the actual war from Harrenhal to the Fall of King's Landing as a trilogy. And my loose idea was the third movie would simply be a bridge about the Greyjoy Rebellion, and really just an excuse to catch up on, and here's 10-year-old Jon Snow, and 10-year-old Robb Stark, and here's 10-year-old Theon coming to Winterfell, just to catch everyone up on things. And the draw would be, these are the major characters we're all familiar with, like seeing young Luke and Leia in the Obi-Wan thing, but as a linker just for the sake of completion. So I don't know if... This is an open-ended question. Could Robert's Rebellion sustain one big movie, a full movie trilogy, or what I think is 2 movies and then a coda movie about the reign of Robert Baratheon, mostly Greyjoy Rebellion and other stuff that was popping up? I think that would work. That's just my speculation. So when they're saying we're doing a Robert's Rebellion movie, do they mean it's going to cover the whole war or the outbreak of the war and then have a sequel? We don't know. That is an open question, but I am 99% they are considering Robert's Rebellion, because if you have one choice and they're cutting back to only one movie, that's what they're doing. Now, at the beginning of this, I mentioned that something in George R. R. Martin's blog really clinched it for me, that Casey Bloys confirmed the rumors on November 12th. Yes, there is a movie that we are in the early stages of discussing. No writer is attached yet, which really means it's not Targaryen Conquest or it's not Nymeria retooled as a movie. It's something different. 2 days earlier, on November 10th, George R. R. Martin was talking about the trip he took to England in his blog, and he remarked, quote, "We also got together with Maisie Williams for pizza and pasta, and talked about, ellipses, well, no, better not get into that, do not want to jinx it." Was he considering some project with Maisie Williams as Arya? Now, granted, Martin, sometimes he could be doing projects with actors for unrelated things, just because he supports actors who he knows and other things. And it might not be for Robert's Rebellion, it might be for something else. Now, I don't think it's a Arya sequel thing that's going to retroactively fix Game of Thrones. Martin himself would never support that. I do caution it might not be a movie thing, but maybe because he's doing that stage play, maybe he asked Maisie to come and, in character as Arya, appear in the prologue as Arya, giving the introduction. Not forever, for like the opening run, the opening night, couple of weeks run in London East End. Can you appear technically in the stage play cast as Arya narrating this in front of the crowd, and then the other actors turn on and start doing everything. Like how Shakespeare narrates, the narrator from Henry V walks on the stage and points things out retroactively, and then the other actors don't interact with him. That kind of thing. So I don't want to get your hopes up that it could just be Maisie cameoing in the stage play, and this is the story of my Aunt Lyanna. That's most probable to me. Then again, I think there is a good chance, not 100%, maybe he wanted her to do that for a Robert's Rebellion movie, which is loosely incorporating points from the stage play outgrowth of that. I, this Christmas, watched the War of the Rohirrim animated movie for Lord of the Rings, and they got back Miranda Otto to be the narrator in character as Éowyn, because these are her ancestors about 100 years ago. So I can see in direct parallel to how Éowyn was the narrator for that. Maybe they're negotiating or trying to have Maisie Williams as a voiceover narrator, but in character as Arya, being the narrator for this Roberts Rebellion movie, not unlike the motion comics. That was a weird thing about the motion comics. In 8 seasons, some actors never did any, but it had nothing to do with pay grade. That Cersei never did one, Tyrion never did one, and Daenerys never did one. And some of this is, well, Daenerys wouldn't, she's really young. But on the other hand, they got Kit Harington to narrate some of those. They got Nikolai Coster-Waldau to narrate some of those. Sansa, like, when you look at the actual histories and lore about Robert's Rebellion that they made in Season 7 at the end of Conquest and Rebellion, Kit Harington, Nikolai, and Sophie Turner were all, tier A. They're legally defined. These are the core cast members. They had Jon Snow, Jaime, and Sansa narrating those. Maisie Williams never narrated a motion comic. And it kind of makes sense, again, like Daenerys, well, she's so young she wouldn't. Then again, Bran Stark narrated some of these, which were about magic, I understand that, but wouldn't they eventually have Arya saying things about the Starks or about Braavos? Or she could have just as easily narrated the stuff about Lyanna that Sansa did. Never got the chance. So I don't think this would be a thing of, like, she appears on screen. Why would she? Any more than Miranda Otto didn't need to appear on screen as Éowyn in a cartoon. But there is a non-zero chance that they're discussing having Maisie be the narrator for a Robert's Rebellion movie, which is actually a pretty good idea. Maybe not. And even then, it might be a plan that falls through. Martin says, I don't want to jinx it. This is all theoretical, and I need to stress, I'm not trying to clickbait you. I could be wrong. But at this point in time, just in the back of my mind, I get the inkling that I think they're probably discussing Robert's Rebellion as a movie and kind of want Maisie Williams to be the narrator for it. Voiceover is Arya. Live action movie. Will it be more than one movie, a series of movies? Or they said we don't even have a writer attached. These are ideas we are actively discussing in the office, but it's not actually a project yet, much less a greenlit one. So I don't know, but I'm sorry it took me so long to get. I was very sick in the middle of November. I couldn't talk about this. But it came up again when Orsi yesterday was talking about future projects. Even if they started a movie right now, hiring writers to do pitches now, it would be later in development than the nascent Targaryen Conquest show, which Mattson Tomlin is already writing, or the Nymeria show by Ebony Booth. Like, the next project we could potentially see after House of the Dragon's next season, after the next seasons of Dunk and Egg, like a year, more likely 2 from now, we might be seeing Targaryen Conquest Season 1 in the best of circumstances. Whatever this movie is, it wouldn't come out before that. Also, I'm not really sure what the timeline is on animated projects. They said there were still a couple of cartoon projects. There were 3 at one point. We scaled back. One of them is Sea Snake, one is Yeti, and another one we don't know. I think it might be an anthology. But that's loosely where this is. I can't judge animation because we don't get leaks about that kind of thing. So if they even started this right now, like if in spring they announced we're considering a movie, when they announce movies now, you don't actually see them for 3 years. I mean, they just started development on the Batman 2, for Mattson Tomlin, so we'll see on that. But just making this video mostly so you guys can discuss this in the comments. 2 questions. Do you think that if they're making one movie, what is it? It's most probably Robert's Rebellion. Yes or no? I think it most probably is. Second, I guess, would be, is Maisie going to be involved with it or not? But that's, are they trying, was Martin referring to Maisie in this, and it might not even turn out? Second real question, though, is, would Robert's Rebellion work better as one movie, a trilogy, or 2 movies, and then a linker movie about the reign of Robert Baratheon and the Greyjoy Rebellion, mostly just as a coda, to link it all together? That last one is what I would do. That's where production stands right now. And I'll keep you updated, so please like and subscribe of, is House of the Dragon just going to keep going into the Aftermath era after Season 4? What's the episode count ever going to change again for the final season? How are they going to handle things? Casting process for season 3 has started. They already cast Ormond Hightower. As I said, I could wake up tomorrow and find other major cast members like Dayron. Please stick around. We are starting to get news every day to the point I have quite a backlog. So check around and please leave a comment. I do try to respond to all of them.